Okay, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Gloved. A modern day Gloved. Zoom calls are where it's at the moment, but hopefully we're coming out of it soon. Hope everyone's well, hope everyone's safe. Apologies for not too much activity recently, but a lot's been going on, as you can well imagine. But tonight we're really excited. Second female guest on the show, fellow goalkeeper. I'm really looking forward to finding out about her adventures so far in the game. The transition, the changes, coming a long way, simple as that. We've got Rachael on the show. She's currently with Liverpool, top keeper. Great to hear that she's also a big fan of what we're trying to do here. Really interested to see what she thinks, how we can move forward and find out all about her career in the only way we know how, asking the right questions, working off what she's got to say. And looking to give you guys as much insight as we possibly can. So Rachael, thank you very much for giving us your time this evening. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to giving an insight to my football career and looking forward to the next hour or so chat.
No, definitely. It's going to be awesome. Jamie, I'm going to introduce you, let you do your thing. But Rachael, meet Jamie. Jamie, meet Rachael.
Rachael, good to meet you. And, interesting. I'm excited that, following Karen, I know I'm sure you know Karen well. And, I think we are aiming to have more of the women's game represented on the podcast and find out, the interest in how the game has developed and so quickly. But there have been pioneers and Karen has been part of a generation, and you have as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing your journey. I had a quick insight into it, but you are now in the northwest of England and playing at one of the top clubs. So welcome to Gloved.
Thank you, Jamie. Looking forward to continuing the conversation.
So I'm gonna kick off. Joe, I know you want to get straight into some stuff, but I know you two Instagram friends, but also being fellow goalkeepers as well, and so we end up here having this conversation. You've listened to some of the other podcasts. What is it about Gloved that that's our paths have crossed like this?
Again, big fan of the podcast, and when I'm watching them, goalkeeping or the position of a goalkeeper can be very lonely at times. And I think when you watch Gloved and you see the insight of different goalkeepers, who've made it to the top of the game, Cash Michael, I watched his a couple of weeks back, and listening to him and his stories about going out on loan and wanting to go out on loan and play. And you think sometimes you are alone as a goalkeeper and you're the only one to kind of go down a certain path, whether it be injuries, whether it be you having to go on loan to play. And it's almost knowing that you're not alone, listening to other people's stories and relating to them. And I think it's a big thing. Again, I say, goalkeeping is sometimes a lonely position, and watching Gloved, it's almost like, oh, actually I'm not alone. Whether you're playing in the Premier League or whether it be non-league football, it's goalkeeper. It is a specific position, and you do feel alone. But watching Gloved, it's a big thing to know you're not alone. I think that's kind of what I can relate to most in the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say that's obviously definitely something that we want to get across. But I think it's interesting, Rachael, how like the goalkeeper position of feeling alone, how sometimes just aside from football, you can feel alone. You can feel like you have, really unique situations that you don't necessarily know how to handle, and you feel like you're going through things that no one else will experience on and off the field. But I think just the more that you have this conversation, obviously you got bought into it because of the goalkeeping thing, but I just think in life as well, it's really nice to feel not alone, you know, and also feel that, you know, certain things and self-doubts or problems that come your way, that first of all, you're not the only one to have them. And second of all, the thing that we really, really push for on this podcast and is that ways of handling them, of dealing with them. You know, there's not necessarily ways of stopping them from happening, but there's tools that we're trying to pass on. There's tools that I'm sure you're going to pass on in this without even knowing that you're passing on, that will resonate with someone else. That is why we're doing it, and that is why we want to have these conversations. We want people to listen. Obviously, you know, like you tuned in because of the goalkeeper. We want people to just tune in and see where it sits with them and in their life, and it can help. And you know, like hopefully you're going to bring to the table here, you're going to bring some solutions for some other people, and that's the snowball effect that we're looking for.
I think for me that the one thing that I've been really encouraged by is the non-footballers who've said that they've been able to relate to it. And, you know, so that theme that you've just said, Rachael, is very, very important. I always say to people, you should, when you listen and watch, you should be thinking, how does this apply to me? And I guess that's in one way you're saying, Rachael, is when you've listened to somebody else on the podcast, you've applied it to your own world. And so, you know, great to have you. And, you know, I like the fact that you've been to Manchester today, but you are in Liverpool. And I thought that was, you know, Liverpool being in your, am I supposed to say that, by the way? Are you allowed out of Liverpool? I
don't know what tears we're rocking here.
Yeah.
We're not actually allowed out yet.
You are at a very successful football club, and where did your journey start to get to Liverpool FC as a young goalkeeper? Where did the passion for the game start?
I want to go even further back, please. Sorry, Rachael. How did you end up in goal? The least glamorous position ever.
Right. It's actually not a great story to tell, but it was. I was actually playing for the school team at the time, and I was actually playing outfield. And your best players in the school team then went to a county team. I think I was only about maybe 13 at the time. Never played in goal. And we went along to the county, and we didn't have a goalkeeper. It was the only position we didn't have. And, you know, take turns in goal, rushy keeper, all this. And I was in goal. I was only in for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I actually felt like I was doing okay. I was, out of the people that had gone in before us, I'd actually probably done the best. And, oh, right, Rach, you can stay there. And I thought, oh, like, okay, if it means us playing in a game, I'm going to stay here. And it was actually just that. It was by chance. We all had to take a chance in goal. And yeah, I just happened to be probably the best of a bad bunch at it. And it's kind of just stuck.
It's usually the striker, isn't it? Did you always want to be a striker, Rachael?
Yeah, they get all the glory, don't they? So it's probably one of the better positions. So I think I was again, probably didn't have a position, but I found myself in the midfield as more of a 4. But then, yeah, it's probably the best thing that's happened to us, to be honest, going in goal and giving it a try.
And how tall are you, by the way?
5'9".
Okay.
Which is pretty tall for a female goalkeeper, to be fair. There's not many kind of that height or above, apart from the likes of your Karen Bardsleys.
Right. Okay. So,
and then where did you progress from there? Where did you progress from just being the best of a bad bunch to, a long way down the line? It's your career. How does that happen? You know, because I wanted to talk to you. I was saying before we came on about you have been a part of a huge transition in women's football, like literally lived it. You've lived it. You've lived the change. You've lived the professionalism change from, you know, a sport that was enjoyed. And, you know, there wasn't too much traction of it in the UK. We always, you know, my kind of knowledge of women's women's soccer was that it was big in America and nowhere else. So I didn't really, foresee it coming into the powerhouse it is now, and love seeing what I'm seeing and the quality and the talent on show. So how did that progression, we found out you were the best of a bad bunch. Then where did you go? How did you push on from there? Was there a desire to push on from there, or was it just a natural progression?
I think it was probably more at that time, at that age, it was probably more of a natural progression. I went from county to Sunderland AFC Centre of Excellence. I think I was about 14, 15 by the time this come round. And again, goalkeeper.
As a Sunderland fan?
Newcastle.
Right, okay.
Yeah, controversial, I know.
Interesting in the household.
Went for trials, got through the trials as a goalkeeper. That was kind of all I knew then. I'd been playing in goal for maybe a year or two. Trial for the Centre of Excellence. Got through, got picked, got selected. And then from there, went to Sunderland Women Reserves. At the time, I was speaking to Jamie briefly before, and I says, if you are young enough and good enough, you played. And I think I was maybe 13 when I first played for the Sunderland Reserves. And then, again, just as a hobby, didn't get paid or anything for it. You're lucky if you train twice a week. And then I thought, actually, do you know what it is? I thoroughly enjoy this. And again, at the time, it wasn't, I can make a career out of it. It was nowhere near that. But I was actually taking it a lot more serious, training in goal and kind of researching the position. Then I got called up to the first team. Carly Telford at the time was the first team goalkeeper. She got injured. And we didn't have a sub-keeper at the time. And I remember, I think I got the call on a Thursday night saying, look, Rachel, we need you for the first team on Sunday. And I thought, I'm 14-year-old. Like, I've just had a reserve game last week and probably got pumped about 7-0. But when I think we ended up winning 3-1, I think I conceded a penalty. But again, at the time, if they needed us, and I was 14-year-old, and now that's quite unheard of. Playing for first team at such a young age. But back then, it was a thing, and again, I didn't really know much about first team football. I was just concentrating on still playing for the reserves and still playing for the Centre of Excellence. And it was a big jump. It was first team football. It was women. I was going into a women's game as a 14-year-old kid, and I didn't know what to expect. Again, we won, so it was probably a little bit. I did enjoy it, and it was something from then on I probably wanted more of. Going from playing reserve team football, it at the time was a pretty low standard, but I was enjoying it, so it didn't matter. To a first team game where they were technically and tactically much better, and me enjoying that position. I got a taste of first team football at 14, and it kind of pushed on from there. And I was in and out of the first team. Obviously, I think Carly had dislocated her shoulder at the time, but I think she was back within a month. So I think I remember playing a couple of games, and then Carly was back, and I was back with the reserves. But I think from then on, that gave us the hunger. Then couple of games with the first team give us the hunger to go, right, well, actually, I enjoy the position. I want to learn. I'm training now, going to training with a goalkeeper coach, and I just wanted to do well and ultimately play for the first team week in, week out. And I did eventually get there. But then was probably when the hunger kind of really, I thought, right, this is what I want to do every week.
How old was Carly at the time?
I don't want to say that she was older than what she was.
Ish, if you know what I mean. Was she?
Carly was 17-ish, maybe. Not much older. I think she's only a couple of years older than me now. She was a relatively young goalkeeper, but at the time, still pretty established for being 16, 17 years old. She had been first goalkeeper for a while. And obviously having her to look up to was a great role model for me as well at that age.
I was going to say, who are you, the access to actually watching women's football must have been tough at that age, in terms of having, I know it's not too long ago, but there wasn't YouTube really particularly, you weren't able to really access women's goalkeeping that easily. So was it, obviously Carly, was that someone you saw the path with? You saw how she worked and thought, I fancy that? Or was there someone else, or was there anyone in the men's game or anything lit your fire as a goalkeeper apart from just simply playing the game and making saves?
I think Carly was a big, I'm not too sure she even knows this, but I think Carly was a big kind of force with me going, right, this is what I want to do. And even being on the bench for the first team, sitting watching Carly week in, week out, and almost learning from her when she didn't even realise I was, because we didn't always get to train with the first team. But watching Carly week in, week out, one of her strengths was she's very good with her feet, she still is.
Yeah.
I thought, oh wow, like I want to be as good as her, kind of not only shot stopping, but you can use your feet as well. And she was such a good role model because, like you said, you didn't have access to videos, and games were never televised back then. So having her to look up to, again, only being a couple of years older, so I could relate to her kind of age-wise as well, was a big thing for me, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have had many people to choose from.
I was going to say, at this point, what were the ambitions that you were starting to develop? Because, where was the women's game at this point?
Well, it certainly wasn't kind of part-time or anything like that. It was, you train twice a week on a night, probably at 9 o'clock. You're not getting until 10:30, 11, and you go and play on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I can remember actually being with the first team, and we had Arsenal away. I thought, oh great, we'll travel down the day before, and we'll stay in a hotel. And I didn't really know what to expect. I'd never kind of been on an away trip in a first team environment. And we actually travelled on the Sunday morning to play them. And we left it.
How far was that?
I think it took us about 6 hours. It's a good couple of 100 mile, and they got a text, and it was, oh look, you've got to be at the stadium to get on the bus at 6 a.m. And oh, wow. And this was like I don't know when we got the text, maybe it's like a Friday later on. And I said, oh man, we're travelling on Sunday, not Saturday. And I didn't know what to expect, because it was my first experience of an away trip with the first team of that distance. So yeah, back then it was, travel on the day. We had to pay to play football. You had to go and pay your subs, but you did it because you loved it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, looking back, it's taught us quite a lot. How lucky we are now. We talk about the transition of playing back then, first team football, compared to now. It's a complete polar opposite. But yeah, it was a learning curve for us, certainly. Yeah.
Are you glad you had that kind of that crossover between the two periods? How's that shaped your thinking in your career?
It's definitely made me appreciate everything a lot more now. We get it very good now compared to what it was like back then. Traveling on the day, we pay to play. I'm lucky to now have it as a career. But back then, when I was 14, 15, 16-year-old, I never dreamt that I'd be sitting here as a professional footballer. And for it to come as far as it has, and people in the game now probably don't realise it, but I'm so glad that I got to experience both ends of it. I hope I've got a good few years left as well, still playing, but I feel like I've had to experience that back then to feel as lucky and humbled as I am now, and kind of appreciate everything a little bit more. I always compare the two. And there's actually probably nothing to compare, because again, they're polar opposites, but it's almost put me in a really good stead to appreciate everything. And everything you get now, for me, it's right now in my career, it's the little bits of detail. And back then, you were lucky to have a goalkeeper coach, and I appreciate the little things so much more now that you didn't get back then. But yeah, it's absolutely polar opposite, but it's a good polar opposite to where we are now.
So I love that. I really do. And I love that you look at it that way, because I think there's a real dangerous trend in football, for now people to be really kind of bitter towards the fact that nowadays it's seen as being a whole lot easier. Because I think that's so narrow-minded to look at it that way, because, example of myself coming through at Shrewsbury Town, literally same as you, just loving it. I was involved 14, 15. I was on the bench at 15, 16 at school. Like, I genuinely didn't know that I got money for being on the bench. I got £25 for being on the first team bench. Like, didn't even know it, didn't expect it, not interested, buzzing, absolute bonus. And now we talk about, everyone just goes into the zone of talking about, the youngsters at Chelsea now, they don't make a first team appearance, they get paid this. Like, people just moan about it, like, and it really annoys me, because it's not their fault. It's not the guy's fault. Just as it is right now with you training with young pros at Liverpool. Like, it's not their fault that the game's all of a sudden pro. And I'm glad that people see it that way, and you're able to talk, like, humbly and happily about the fact that, yeah, you did do it that way, but that's just how it was. Just as people, I'm sure, in 15, 20 years will be talking about now, it will have evolved more, and there'll be the people who want to will be moaning about how it was for the 17-year-old now. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about, other girls women in the game who are bitter towards the girls now that are coming through and earning professional contracts and making, literally making their career from 16, 17 years old?
I think there always will be a little bit of bitterness, probably not towards the player, but towards where the game is now.
Yeah.
We have conversations at Liverpool where, they get it lucky, they get it good, they don't know kind of where the game's been and come to. But like you said, Joe, it's kind of, it just evolves like that. And, people have landed on their feet who come into the game now. But for me personally, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's made me the player and probably person I am today. And, if I didn't get paid for it now, I'd still probably play. Just because I enjoy it so much. And, you make friends and you travel the world. And it just happens that the game's evolving. It's doing the right thing. But you maybe are a little bit bitter, I wish I'd have been a couple of years younger, or I wish I'd have, like come in a little bit later or anything like that, or wish it had happened earlier. But again, I wouldn't change my experiences for the world, but you can probably say you're a little bit bitter towards it, just because you'd like a little bit longer in the game. We're not getting any younger, and the game's growing and growing. And, I'd like to think I've got a few years left to kind of experience where it's going to go. But I think I'm quite really happy with kind of where I've been and where I am now, and I'd like to think I've got a couple of years left to experience what's next.
Do you
have you got good young goalies? Sorry, Jay. I'm just going to say, have you got good?
Are you passing on to the young keepers? That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, we've got a young girl training at the minute called Elena Heaps. She's in the England youth setup. She kind of comes in to train with us every day, just to better herself. And
how old? Sorry,
she's 17.
Right.
She's just turned 17 a couple of months ago, so she's still quite young. And we actually had a conversation the other day about what she's going to do next. And she said, "Oh, look, Rosie, I need your advice," kind of thing. I said, "Oh, yeah, ask us anything." And I'd like to think the 4 or 5 months I've been here, I've made a good enough impression as to where she can come and speak to us about anything to do with goalkeeping or not. And, she asked us, what would you do if you were in my position? And we had a good little chat. And I'd like to think that on the training pitch, I probably don't even realise it, but I am passing on little bits to her. And she's like a sponge. She wants to learn, she goes over clips of training. She's working on her kicking at the minute. And I'm going to do all I can to help her, just because she's actually such a good kid and I want her to do well. A willingness to learn and listen is like I've never experienced it before in that age of a goalkeeper. And she's a good kid coming through, and I'd like to think I do rub off on her a little bit, and any questions she's got, she always asks. So I'd like to think I am rubbing off a little bit. Yeah.
I think it's interesting when you are that example. Not everybody will grasp that, but the ones who do, you really do want to help them, don't you? And it's something that we often promote, is the going, having conversations and asking questions and utilizing the access. And it sounds like this young player is making the most of having you around. That's really important. But it's also the other way, is that you're, just being you and being on the journey that you're on. You don't know who's watching, so if you're being that example, Rachael, it's great. It could go the other way, couldn't it? Because if you weren't the player or the I'm not going to say role model, but if you weren't the player or person you are, and you were something else, there are also people who are watching that. So she's blessed to have you in that, so close to her.
Yeah, I always say to her that if I had access to what she's got access to now, goalkeeping would be in a totally different level in the women's game. And I think I always tell her, if I'm talking, look, our goalkeeper coach, Jen Hurst, her detail is so specific and spot on. And I said, Elle, utilise that and go and watch clips. And if you need advice from me or if it's Jen or whoever, go and ask. Because if I had access to that when I was her age, God knows where the goalkeeping world would be in women's football. I just tell her to utilise as much as she can, because it's there now for goalkeepers.
Mm-hmm. I think that's not just in the women's game. I think that's advice, Rachael, for any player, outfield player, goalkeeper, any sport. You utilise what is there. Utilise it. It's interesting you mentioned your goalkeeping coach. How much of an influence has she been on you recently, since your time at Liverpool?
Massively. Jen spoke to me briefly before I actually signed my contract, maybe a couple of weeks before, and I didn't quite know what to expect. I'd never had a female goalkeeper coach before. I'd always had male coaches. And I did think, will there be differences, but speaking to her, she reassured me that it's the same. Our detail's great. And one thing, I'm not getting any younger. I've just turned 30, and I did say to her that what I need now is probably detail, the small details that will probably improve my game tenfold. I'm 30, I'm probably not going to learn something new now, but what I do need to do is refine the things that I quite haven't refined yet. And I can honestly say, a detail, she's probably one of the best, or if not the best goalkeeper coach I've had. A detail and everything is so specific, and I've only been here 5 months, but watching me clips back after games and things, little things that she just says, but it sticks. My game is, it makes everything look a lot easier. Joe, you'll probably know, if you're in the right position to go make a catch or make a save, it looks easy, but you found yourself in that position because you've taught yourself to be there. And little things that I could never imagine makes a big difference, but it does. And I can't speak highly enough of her. She's great.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there, I think it takes, we are a different breed. I think as a goalkeeper, speaking to someone who likes football, who's in football, will come to you, Rachael, and say, "Oh my God, you had an amazing game today," when you probably thought, you know what, got a bit lucky. Few balls hit me when maybe they wouldn't hit me. And no one's saying a word to you when the team's won 4-0, but you just felt smooth and in control. And that's a good game. That's a good game for a goalkeeper. But I think that's the beauty of our position. We are different, and not different in terms of being crazy or whatever people want to put that generalization on goalkeepers. But when you talk about the details, look at that. Look at the difference from being 13 at a trial, everyone going goal, just do it, to being now 30 and literally working on the detail of where to be on a cross. It's a position that you evolve into. And people talk about, it's all very well being a good 22 and 23. And if you're really good at 22 and 23, then Jesus, you're going to be good when you're older. If you really want to be, you want to study the game. So that's really interesting to see. And, I'm really intrigued by that. And I'd love to know that detail that she goes. When you say detail, what detail are you talking about? Are you talking about detail being reactive to what she's seen, or detail to having her how she thinks is the best Rachael Laws in goal, and this is how she can work around. These are the situations where you weren't the perfect Rachael in her opinion, and then you meet in the middle. Is it that kind of relationship?
Yeah, it is. It is quite mutual, as to where I'm still like a sponge, and if I concede a goal in training, I'm asking why. You know, was I in the right position? Was I too close to my near post? There's so many questions, and she just gets it and she sees it, and all right, we'll do it again, but try and stand here. And it just makes it so much easier, and you make that save. The ball's gone exactly the same position, but her Lawsy slightly to your right, okay, half a step, I've made the save. And going through clips with that, we're pretty open with each other, you know. She'll tell us if I've done well, she'll tell us if I've done bad, which I think that's what you need with your goalkeeper coach. You need a very good relationship, and I think from the minute I come through the door, I knew that she was going to make me even better, you know, with the fine detail. And it's just, you know, watching clips back from the game, and there's a ball out wide, and actually, Loz, you're a little bit close to your near post, come back a bit, and then in the next game, I can see myself doing it, and it's almost, she just, no matter what she says, it just seems to be right. And it's helped me go from being a decent average goalkeeper to making it look really easy. And it's not, we know it's not, you know, we train day in, day out for it. And like you said, so, you had a great game. Yeah, I was all right. But it's being in the right position because she tells me to be there. And,
yeah,
you know, she sees things I don't even see. And I'm like, oh, like now you've actually said it, it's actually really, really clear. And from coming in and playing my first pre-season friendly to now, things that she was picking up on back then, we now stop clips and go, look, you're in the right position. And at the start of pre-season, you would have been here. But because she just seems to, you know, tell me and tell me and tell me again, it's in there. And that's I think that's what I needed. But yeah, she's great, but it's pretty mutual, and you know, I'll ask questions and she'll tell us how it is, but I think that's what I need.
It's
yeah, I think you're similar to me. That's how I like it.
Where was just, you know, because you're talking about, you know, where you are now and what you needed, which was that detail. As you were progressing, you know, what was the club before Liverpool, and what were those years like? Because there's one thing that is a thread on Gloved, is the journey of the goalkeepers is always very interesting. You know, whether that's the several clubs, you know, everybody sees, okay, this is where you've ended up, you know, a Leicester, a Premier League champion, or a Liverpool. But for me, it's what makes you, and is that journey. So, you know, for you were, it was quite late on, and you've been at Sunderland quite a while, hadn't you? But before you started to branch out.
Yeah, I was at Sunderland from a young age, made me obviously debut with 14, kind of stuck in and out of the first team and reserves, and I was about 16 or 17 when I was constantly with the first team. I was a first team player. Again, still didn't even get paid. We still paid to play.
I was going to say, was that your first pro contract?
No, I didn't get my first pro contract till I was 24, I think. But kind of stuck with Sunderland, knew no other. Being a Newcastle fan, people always said, oh, why don't you play for Newcastle? But Sunderland women's team was head and shoulders above back then, and that was kind of the place to be. So I stuck with it. I got some stick, but you know, it was the best place for me to develop. Played for the first team, 4 or 5 seasons, and then the Women's Super League come about. We applied for it. We didn't get in, but if you didn't get accepted to the Women's Super League, you went into Women's Super League 2. We were gutted about it. We expected to get in, and you know, as someone who was thoroughly enjoying their goalkeeping, I didn't mind what league we were in, but it was going into this professional league where you thought, oh, we need to be in it. And when we didn't get in it, we thought it was the end of the world. And I was a 22, 23-year-old girl and it's like, you know what, like I died or something. It was so powerful to see everyone in the room basically crying because we didn't make it into this professional league, but it wasn't the end of the world. And
why didn't you make it? Why weren't they accepted?
I think it had something to do with funding, because obviously back then you relied heavily on your men's team. You still do, but you kind of had to put a package together. You know, is your funding there in place? You need a training facility, you need a pitch with barriers, blah blah blah. And I think it something within the bid wasn't quite good enough. But we got put into Super League 2, and we thought, right, actually we'll turn this into a positive and we'll get promoted at the first time of asking, and we'll almost say, right, look, you should have put win first time. So I remember going into a season 23-year-old with this massive amount of pressure that I'd never felt before. Going from training twice a week to now training 3 or 4 times a week. And it almost being semi-pro, you know, you probably got expenses back then. So
what else were you doing on the side? What else did you have to concentrate on?
I was coaching at Gateshead College. The college I went to was like a sports college in the northeast. And our manager at the time, Melanie Ray, she was head coach there, and she needed some sort of an assistant. And she says, "Oh, like, would you like to do it?" I says, "Absolutely," because obviously you did need a job alongside it. But I was still at home, luckily. But you still wanted that little bit of pocket money, and so I coached alongside, and it was good because Mel understood that football was probably my priority. So as and when I needed time off, she was great. "Oh yeah, go on, get yourself a trainer, Lozzie," whatever it was. And I was really fortunate because some people had jobs where they missed training or they missed games, and I was just fortunate enough to work with someone who was a part of the women's game and kind of knew what it meant in the northeast. So going into this season at 23 with, oh God, actually we've got to perform, we need to kind of prove people wrong that we should have got in the Super League. And we went on and won the league. It come down to the last game, and we had Millwall away, and it was at the Den, which was great at the time. No women's team played at that men's ground, and we ended up winning 4-0. It was actually a really comfortable game. Anyway, got promoted to the Super League, and that was my first pro contract at 24. Again, pressure ramped up again, and you're thinking, God, I'm now getting paid to do something I love. I've got to perform.
Were you full time then?
Yes, but it was half of our team was full time and half was part time, because some still had like teaching jobs and things like that. So if you were full time, you actually trained 3 times a day, including weights. So it was, you're in on a morning for breakfast, and we trained at the academy like with the men, so our food and everything got provided, which was great. We trained, it was probably maybe 11 o'clock till about 1. I trained with the men's academy goalkeepers, which was excellent. Probably developed us a lot more than I thought it did looking back. You had to be a little bit more robust and tough-faced, but it's helped me massively. So you trained in the morning, you went and got lunch, you had from about 2 o'clock till 6 o'clock to just chill, go home, do what you want, and then you were back in for weights 6 till 7, and then you were on pitch 7:30 till 9:30 with the part-time people who had jobs through the day would come in and train on the night. And
every day?
It would have been Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday would be without weights. So it was pretty full on. But again, back then I did it because it was what I loved. And looking back now, I could never do it now. I wouldn't be able to walk come Sunday in the game. But back then, you were a young guy, you were robust. You just wanted to do it. You still thoroughly enjoyed it, and you know, you'd look back and right, I'd train 4 times a day if I had to. But it was a bit full on, and you know, it was hard because there was a bit of a divide in the team. If you were the full timers
and part timers,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And there almost was a bit of divide. Looking back, it was pretty obvious, but at the time you thought, oh no, like they're happy to do what they're doing, they're still getting a wage from teaching and a little bit from football, but we thought we were tired training 3 times a day, but actually them going to work and coming into train was a different kettle of fish, and they were probably a lot more exhausted than us. They were getting up at 5-6 o'clock in the morning, whereas we had a bit of a lie in, we weren't until 9 o'clock, and it did go fully full time, but then people had to choose, which was really difficult for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple of the girls decided to step away from football. Again, very, very good footballers, but they had to choose that career because at the time, women's football was still a bit of an unknown. Yeah, we are full-time professionals, but can you still make a full career out of it? We don't know. So that was a bit hard. You lost friends as well as teammates to a full-time job when, looking back, you wish you hadn't known, because they probably would have stayed in the game. But it was difficult to balance, it was. But we kind of got through the first 2 years. First 2 years of pro were probably like a learning curve for everyone, really, even the staff, because they had never been involved in a full-time women's football environment. And then I think we held our own in the Super League, did well. We're probably the least funded club, but the players we had, coming from the northeast, you just love your football and you wanted to play for each other. We're like a family, and that got us through most games and probably got us most points that we had that season. And we had no right to pick up points off some people, but with togetherness and willingness to work for each other, we actually finished 4th in our first season in the Super League, which we never should have. But it's that family feel up there that, I'm going to work hard for you next to me, and I'm going to square a ball if I'm through on goal. And it's just that everything around the team was great. We're the underdogs, probably going into 90% of games, but we were just so willing and we enjoyed it and we loved it that we probably got the majority of points from just our togetherness. And up there, I know everyone loves that football, but in the northeast, I don't know, it just seems to be, me coming from there, it just seems to be a little bit more special. Even playing for Sunderland, I'm a big Newcastle fan, massive Newcastle fan, but when I put on the Sunderland shirt, I forgot all about it because I was just willing to do whatever it takes to win for the team, regardless of the colours I had on.
Where are you thinking at this point then? You're in the Super League, you finished 4th in the league. What's Laws's ambition? What's happening to her ambition at this point?
It's going up and up, and your first feel of a full-time contract, again, looking back, training 3 times a day was absolutely outrageous, but at the time I loved it and I wouldn't change it for the world. Them few pounds I was getting at the end of the month was enough to keep driving me through and hoping that it would go from strength to strength. In the probably 3 seasons I was at Sunderland, the first 2 were probably the hardest because it was almost, again, a bit of an unknown. Would I be offered another contract? Because it was just year-to-year basis. Obviously not knowing whether you were going to even survive in the league. But the first season we held our own. I managed to sign another 2-year contract. I thought, right, okay, I can really kick on now. I'm secure. I know I'm safe for another 2 years. And at this time, I'm not working at the college anymore. I'm fully focused on football.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of when, around about 24, 25 was really when I took it serious, but I really started to really think that I can make a career out of this now. You looked at the likes of your Manchester Cities, your Arsenals, your Chelseas, and you thought, like, why can't that be us and why can't that be me? And it was, like I said, it was almost probably then that I thought, right, I can actually make a decent career out of this, and the women's game is going from strength to strength, even in them first 2-3 years.
Are you thinking of, I want to play for a top team at this point?
No. I can honestly say no. I'm such a home person as to where Sunderland were doing well. I was enjoying it. I was getting paid to play. and I thought, I don't need to go anywhere else. I'm doing well. I'm learning. I'm getting great goalkeeper coaching from, at the time, the men's academy coach was Mark Prado. And he was actually friends with me mum, so I think he pulled a few strings for me to train with the boys, which was great. And I thought, I don't need to go anywhere else. We finished fourth that first season, and I thought, right, well, what's next? Is it minimum fourth again? And I think we had a bit of a disappointing season, but I don't think I still thought, right, I need to move on. I was quite happy to stay. Probably, people might say comfort zone, and I probably was, but at the time I knew no other, and I was happy to stay because I was learning, I was getting good coaching, I was still at home, I love being at home, and it was almost like, well, it's better the devil you know. If I go anywhere else, will it be as good, or will I get the coaching I'm getting from Mark? There were so many questions that at the time I don't think anyone could answer because it was still a bit of an unknown.
Who's your support bubble? Who are you leaning on? Who gave you your advice? Who did you turn to? And is that still the same now, kind of thing? Is what I want to know.
Yeah, my mum is the first person I pick up the phone to for anything, whether I'm buying a t-shirt or whether I'm changing clubs. She's the first person I pick up the phone to. My brother as well. Since a young age, he's kind of who got us into football, and they're both very football orientated. My brother probably a little bit more so, and he tells us how it is, and that's exactly what I need. When I left Sunderland to go to Reading, speaking to my mum and my brother, it was almost, you've got to do it, not just for yourself, but Sunderland are almost taking steps backwards now. The men's team obviously got relegated, and we were the first team. Our funding just got cut straight away, and it was inevitable. The women's team, right? Okay, cut their funding, save a bit of money, which is, it happens at most clubs, but they said, like, look, you've got to do it now or never. And speaking to my mum when I was at Sunderland, and I said, do I stay? Like, before I signed me extra 2 years, I said, look, mum, I'm learning. Do you think, like, I'm doing well? Do you think I'm getting better? Yeah. And I don't know whether at the time she said it because she maybe thought it was what I wanted to hear, but I do believe that if it was something she disagreed on, she would have said, and so would my brother. And I think, again, they just thought, look, you're happy, you're learning, you're playing, which is a big thing at that age. Kind of just stick with it, see where it goes. And if I need to cross a bridge when it comes to it, then I will in a few years. But they're still the same support bubble now. I pick up the phone to my mum, my brother, and I know that they're there at the drop of a hat to give us any advice I need.
It's great to have. That's like almost, that's more important than anything that I've found, throughout my career. That however the football's going, it's important to have real people around you, real people who can give you real truths, and I'd imagine you do the same for them. Treating people how you want to be treated, and the vice versa is just, I think it's a great thing to have. And I'm glad you got that. And you think they've helped make big good decisions? I think we're getting to the Reading decision now.
I think so. And looking back, I think I was ready to leave as well. And if me mum or brother Barry had said, I think you should stay, I don't know what I would have done, because I do value their opinion a lot. But then I do think that me mum and my brother would be happy either way if I was happy with my decision. But again, if it was like a drastic change in thought from me mum or my brother, they probably would say. But yeah, they had a big say in it. Leaving home. My mum, I lived with her for 26 years, and it wasn't just me leaving home. It was her then living on at home with my stepdad without me there, and it was probably a big decision for her to say yes as well. I'm probably thinking back now, she probably didn't want me to leave as much as I didn't want to, but I had to. But she's more than happy. If I'm happy, she's happy, and it's a great relationship to have.
What was the attraction to go into Reading?
At the time, Reading had done very well in the Super League. I think they finished 3rd or 4th in the season that I left Sunderland. And again, Sunderland were taking a step backwards, if anything. And I thought, I need to go, because if anything, it's only going to get worse. And it was almost now or never. Spoke to my mum, spoke to my brother. Yeah, look, if that's what you want to do, you do it. And I had Matt Buck from the PFA was helping us with my contracts and things at the time. And he said, look, I'll ring around clubs for you, see if anyone needs a goalkeeper. Oh, I really appreciate that. And he rang us back within 24 hours and he says, look, we've got a couple. One was Man United and one was Reading. And I thought straight away, well, Man United, because it's closer. That was literally my thought process. I'm only a couple hours away from home, great. And then I thought, actually, no, like, let's listen to what they both got to say. Let's work it out. It's not the end of the world. You know, I'm 5 hours away from home at Reading, but I can still come home. My mum can still visit. And I remember he rang us back with both contracts. And in the end, Man United actually said, oh, look, we've got Siobhan Chamberlain in and we don't want 2 good goalkeepers. We literally want a number 1 and a number 2. I said, okay, fair enough. Like, I'd rather them be honest than me go and then kind of sit on the bench when I needed to play. And I said to Matt, look, Matt, can you get more out of Reading? Like, see what they've got, blah, blah, blah. So he come back again within a few hours with a number. And it was a really hard decision, I'm not going to lie. Not to go to Reading, because they had done well. They've said what I wanted to hear. They've offered me a great contract. And straight away I thought, I've got to move away from home. And I know that shouldn't have been my thought process, but having been home for so long and being in my comfort zone a little bit, I thought, well, I've got to do it at the end of the day. And I spoke to my mum, spoke to my brother, and they were, go for it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. You know, Sunderland, it's probably going to spiral out of control and kind of get worse and worse. And anyway, I ended up going down to Reading with my mum to have a look around. Spoke to Matt a few times on the phone. Oh, look, Matt, I've been down. Training facilities great. They trained at Bisham Abbey. All the facilities were there. It was great. And having come from Sunderland, that's the only thing I could compare it to. And Reading was head and shoulders, you know, facilities, even staff they had, like medical staff. And we were lucky to have a physio at Sunderland. And now you're going into where you've got like physio, another physio, a doctor. And I was a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, because I didn't know. I just thought everyone was like Sunderland, you know.
Yeah.
And it was almost a shock to the system. But having seen that, I thought it's the place I want to be. And I remember speaking to Kelly and Phil, the managers, and I said, look, I'll give you a call by tonight. Again, got in the car, me and my mum drove home 5 hours, and I was like, Mama, I think I've got to do it. You know, it's great. Everything I've seen and heard today, it's great. I think it's exactly what I need. I know I'm 5 hours away from home and it's not ideal, but I think I need to do it. And I remember getting home about 7 o'clock that night, and I rang Kelly. And I said, look, Kelly, great chat today. Great to see you. Thanks for showing us around. I'd love to be a part of your team. And I think within about 24 to 48 hours, I'd signed on the dotted line. And looking back, it was probably the best decision I made, because Sunderland did go downhill. And at Reading, I was happy. You know, I knew people there. One of my best friends from home, Rachael, she was there. And not just her, but all the girls made us feel welcome straight away. And going from Sunderland, such a family, feeling like a family as a team, going into Reading where it was a bit, I didn't have a clue what to expect. And going into Reading and they made us feel so welcome, I thought, I've made the right decision.
Right. And so decisions are key in any career, and they can take you one way or another. And being away from home for the first time in your mid to late 20s is significant, especially, you know, for players today. And we're, you know, Joe and I are always advising young players that it's not always just about how you play, it's also the adapting to, you know, you say you want to be a pro, and that means moving away. You know, it's a big part of all sports. Was there anything in that period of time that made you question whether you'd made the right decision?
I think over the 2 years, if I'm being totally honest, yes.
We always want you to be totally honest.
I know. But it's, you know, at the time I needed to move, and I said to myself, you know, you've got to do it for you. You'll better yourself. You'll get better coaching. And I remember saying to Kelly at the time, I says, as long as I'm happy off the pitch, I'll be good on it. Because for me, that was the most important thing. And I chose to live on my own. Which I don't know, looking back, I don't know why I did, because moving away for the first time, I probably should have wanted to be around people. But I actually like my own space as well. And I remember going down there, I lived in the clubhouse for a few weeks, looking for a new house. And at the time, the money that I needed to pay rent I literally paid out my wage straight away. And, you know, I said the club law, look, like, is there any chance I can get any help on rent or anything? I says, oh, look, like, it's all included in your contract. I says, oh, that's fair enough. And obviously living in London, Joe, you'll know, is quite expensive.
Yeah.
Especially on your own. And it's that, I think even that, away from on the pitch stuff, I learned so much off the pitch, you know, living on my own, being able to, you know, watch me money and having to afford rent and afford bills. And it taught us so much off the pitch, as it probably more so off it than it did on it. And, you know, I lived on my own. I love living on my own. If I wanted company, I could have it. If I wanted to be on my own, I could stay on my own. And when I was off the pitch and happy, I went in training and I performed. And it was a big thing for me, because obviously moving away from home, them first few weeks, I probably did overthink it a little bit. And I did think, God, have I made the right decision here? You know, I'm living on my own 300 miles away from home, when I don't know, like, anything about living away from home.
So when you said, sorry to interrupt, Rachel, but when you said, if I'm happy off the pitch, then I'm going in training and I'm performing. So what changed? Did you experience the opposite of that, not being happy off the pitch and then going into training and not performing?
I mean, the first couple of weeks, again, I did question it a lot, you know. Some nights on my own, I did think, oh, have I made the right decision? And you probably do overthink things sitting there on your own on a night time. And I went into training the first few weeks. I felt like I was playing catch up anyway, having been at Sunderland, where, you know, we got goalkeeper coaching, but it was nothing like what it was at Reading. And, you know, the balls were hit a little bit harder and everything was a little bit quicker. And I needed to catch up, because Sunderland, I'm seeing go through the motions. I probably did at times at Sunderland. But going to Reading, I thought, right, I've got to really up my game here. I've got to get fit. I've got to get quicker. I've got to be able to jump higher. And it took us, I'm going to probably say, about 2 months to actually get used to the training. You know, just getting up to scratch, and the difference between Sunderland and Reading. And the girls were great, you know. And I spoke to the goalkeeper coach, Craig, and I said, like, I just need probably a few months to find my feet. And I did touch on, you know, I've moved down here. I'm still kind of getting to grips with everything, let alone training and, you know, the intensity and things like that. But I think after the first couple of months, that's when I probably really found my feet. First couple of months, I did question it. Again, my mum and my brother on the end of the phone was there to almost say, like, get yourself together kind of thing, which is probably what I needed to hear. Because I did do it and I could do it, and I was just probably overthinking it. But yeah, first couple of months was probably the toughest, just to get through on and off the pitch, just to find my feet and, you know, get up to speed with Reading. But after that, I had a few little injuries in my first year, which kind of kept us in and out of training. So I almost look back and kind of wipe out my first year at Reading. Just because the little injuries I picked up, it took us a few months to get into it. Luckily, I'd signed a 2-year deal, so I kind of knew that, after then first, right, okay, this is home now. I get to go home a few times and see my family, great. They can come and see me, great. And it did probably take us a couple of months, but overall, it did take us that first season to kind of fully immerse myself in Reading.
Would you say that was the first time you had to properly grow up, or had you already done that?
No, absolutely. That was the first time I did grow up. And when I was speaking to Jamie briefly before, it was at home, you're comfortable and you get everything done for you. Don't get us wrong, I did things, but living away from home, you need to grow up so quick, and it made us such a bigger and better person on and off the pitch with kind of what you had to learn on your own. And you were down there on your own. Yeah, you had your friends and you spoke to them, but it's nothing like being at home. And I did have to grow up, and I had to grow up quickly. And looking back, that's probably the biggest and best thing I've done, not only for my career, but me as a person off the pitch as well.
Yeah, I noticed that because I was different. I went at 19. So I'm just noticing how you're speaking, and it's really evident that home is so important to you. Like, there isn't anything more important. And obviously I'm very lucky, lovely family, love them to pieces, but like home just wasn't that important to me, because I left it, so I had to make a new home. I had to make new experiences. So what I'm trying to say is, do you think it's important to, in a professional career, and especially a sporting career, which is pretty like cutthroat, you need to keep home as somewhere your safe place, but you also need to be another person once you leave your home. You need to be those two different people. Me and Jamie have talked about it a lot. We've referenced it as Harty and Joe, like two different guys. There's the Joe or whatever I was at home, and then Harty, the footballer, like Lawsy and Rachael. Are they two different people? Are they something that talking and advising people on growing up in the game, this kind of professional game it is now? It's almost kill or be killed, people looking for positions, people looking for contracts. Do you think it's really important to develop that from an earlier age? Maybe you didn't need it so early because the game wasn't professional and wasn't livelihoods at stake, but do you think it would have been different if it was earlier in your career?
Yeah, I think so. I totally agree with everything you're saying. And Rachael and Lawsy are two different people. When I'm home, I'm comfortable. I'm in my comfort zone. It's a safe place. And looking back, if the women's game was more professional back when I was, maybe early 20s, late teens, if I made the jump earlier, would I be the person I am? Probably. Would my thoughts still be the same, that I'm still a home person? Yes, but I feel like I would have grown up a lot quicker and learned about life in general a lot quicker. But it is two different people, and living away from home, you learn so much about yourself, that if I'd stayed at home and in my comfort zone, I would never ever have learned. And me even coming to Liverpool after Reading and not going home, which is probably what I thought when I first moved there, was me kind of learning from my experiences at Reading and going, oh, actually, do you know what? I can do it and I can survive. And I'm even closer to my family now, which is great, but I still don't need to go home. And family is such a constant as to where no matter where you are in the world, they'll always be there. And that's why I always turn to my mum and my brother, because they're my comfort, and I know that they'll say what I want to hear. Sometimes they won't, which is sometimes again what I need. But yeah, I think me living away from home so late in my life, I wish it had happened earlier. But I still think the path I've took and where I am now and who I am now, I've learned just a little bit later in life. And don't get us wrong, at home, I did things and I went to work and whatever it was, but would I have wished to do it earlier? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm quite happy with how it's turned out so far.
The game wasn't ready then, though, for you, was it? The game wasn't ready, and I think timing's everything, Rachael. And like you said, you are the person you are now because of the experiences that you've had. And I think the next phase of your career, which you've alluded to previously, is passing on that knowledge. And I think you'll be better for that as a mentor, as a goalkeeping, an experienced goalkeeper passing on, and whatever the next phase of that journey is as well. So I think timing's everything, and you've experienced that transition of the game for a reason. Really have. And also the journey of Sunderland to Reading and then back up north as well is also a big part of that story, because again, you've had an experience that not many goalkeepers will have had, to where you are today. So I like the fact that you didn't leave home till you were 26, because for somebody who's going to listen to that, that's going to be valuable advice.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, at the time, looking back, the game wasn't ready for me to move on. And yeah, I might have been comfortable and happy at Sunderland and living at home, but back then I probably didn't have another option. But I was still playing, I was still enjoying it, I was getting paid to do something I loved. And at the first opportunity where I had to, I did. And I was pretty proud of myself, again, mid-20s, and I hadn't been away from home. But it was almost the next step I had to take in my career. And I'm so glad I did it, looking back, and it's got us to where I am today. But yeah, looking back, I think if I had moved any earlier, would I have ended up here, or would I have ended up at Reading? Probably not. I think the path I've took is probably the path I've needed to take.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We can agree with that, can't we, John?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I'm trying to word a question here, but do you think it's important now, Rachael? Like, I'm getting from this, and I'm really kind of feeling what you're saying. Do you think it's important now for young players, young men, young women in the professional game? They need to learn the quality of being comfortable in uncomfortable situations pretty quick, because it is difficult missing home. It is difficult missing that direct contact. But if you let that get the better of you, then you're going to get left behind. So thinking on your feet, feeling, not letting something that's out of your control take over you is a real important mental skill. You needed that time at Reading. It's good that you realised that, but you also took it on, because you could have easily gone the other way, like easily. I know that I'm not as far north as you I'm in the middle of the country, but I know the north-south divide, the whole mental thought process behind it. You go into the big bad south. They're not nice people. They're not welcoming. So that you can't help but think that, and you could have let that swallow you. So I think you've done really well to see the girls and appreciate that they welcomed you and stuff like that. Like that was a huge moment, huge moments for you, and fair play to you doing it. It's not easy, especially when you, like I said, me at 19, like I didn't really know, I wasn't fully established as a home person, so I just kind of went and did. But to do it at 24, 25 it's a big step. Yeah. And that's a make or break, and you definitely made it, so fair play.
No, thank you. And I always go, there's a little saying, and control the controllables, and me being away from home, you like that one?
I love that one.
Me being away from home, that's all I could do. Again, so many things were unknown to me, not being at home, and I thought, right, control how you think, control how you're going into training, you know, and that helped us through them first difficult 3 and 4 months. And I feel like if I hadn't have thought like that, I probably would have maybe threw the towel in or gone, oh look, Kelly, can I go home for a week or so, or just something. And I just thought, right, 1, you've got to do it for you. 2, I'm trying to make my family as proud as I can, and you know, they believe that I can go down south and I can succeed, and if I can just control what I can control, hopefully everything else should fall into place, and it did.
Yeah, definitely. Go on, Jay.
So in terms of, you know, because I mean, you know, again, I'm excited the fact that you've gone from there to Liverpool, you know, that journey, what was, that's got to be a big moment for you, or was it? Doesn't have to be, but you know, when Liverpool come knocking, how does Rachael feel when Liverpool wants to sign you?
Well, after my second season at Reading, I still wasn't playing as much as I'd liked. I was getting the cup games and things like that, and having gone there and never been a number 2 before, that was another thing on top of everything else. And come my second season, I was ready, right, I'm going to hit the ground running. I know what pre-season's going to be like. I'm not going to have them little niggly injuries anymore. That's going to keep us out. And I felt like I did hit the ground running. Come start the season, I was still a number 2, and I thought, right, well, I'm just going to try and prove day in, day out that I should be a number 1 and I'm capable of being your number 1. And again, still learning how to be a number 2. I'd never, you know, I'd only had that first season again with little niggles, and it kept us in and out. And this was my first kind of, right, okay, no matter what happens, you're going to grab this opportunity and get what you need from it. And we were playing Chelsea away, and Grace got sent off, the number 1 at the time, and I was actually on the bench with an injury. And I thought, oh, they're going to sit us on the bench. I'm not going to be needed. And I'd hyperextended my elbow the day before in training, and I was heavily strapped. I thought, right, in about 12 minutes in, she gets sent off, and I'm thinking, oh God, this is not what I need. This. Anyway, go on. Ended up having a really, really good game. We got beat. I think it was 3-0. They scored 2 pretty late on. Come off thinking, do you know what? As a team, we couldn't have done much more. I was happy with myself. And then COVID come round. We got a few games after that, but then COVID hit and we went home. And I thought, well, my contract's up. Do I want to stay another season? And you know, did I finish the season as a number 1? And Kelly rang me, and she was great on the phone, and she said, look, Rosie, would like to keep you. You know, you were doing great up until coronavirus hit, and we want to offer you another contract. And I says, oh, okay. And I've got an agent, Dale Bennett, and I says, oh, look, speak to Dale, blah, 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 and I'll speak to you in the coming weeks. And I also heard that Liverpool were interested, and I first heard that around about Christmas time. You know, we still had a few months after Christmas when football was still going ahead, and I just thought, oh, you know, it was always in the back of my mind, but I thought, no, I'm a Reading player. I'm going to perform to the best of my ability. I'm going to go to training. I'm going to get out what I need to get out of it. And, you know, it only lasted another 2 months, and then went home, heard nothing for a month or so, and then it got to the point where I thought, I've kind of got to get myself sorted here, because I'm a bit in limbo. I don't know where I am. And I was fortunate to have 2 clubs that wanted us. You know, some didn't have any, and I thought, I was probably overthinking things, thinking, what am I going to do? But I was actually in a really fortunate position. And got an offer from Liverpool, got an offer from Reading, and I don't think at the time Reading knew that Liverpool was so interested. And Kelly put an offer on the table, and it was good. It was very good. It was better than what I'd had for the previous 2 years. And then Dale mentioned to Kelly that another club was interested, so then Kelly upped it again, and I said to my mum, I said,
Was she selling? Was she selling as well as a contract? Was she selling a position to you or not?
yes, she said that because obviously I'd kind of kept my position as a number one after that Chelsea game.
Yep.
You know, you were going into next season as a number one. Obviously, Grant, you've still got to perform. And I thought, okay, well, kind of regardless whether you're offered as a number one or not, I'm going to take it with a pinch of salt. You know, I never want to go to a club and know I'm number one. I'm going to work hard regardless. Excuse me. And when Kelly found out about another club, she didn't actually know it was Liverpool. You know, she put another offer on the table. Then Liverpool kind of put another offer on the table. And at the time, I remember saying to my mum, because I was at home, and I said, Mum, I don't know what to do. Like, my head's all over the place. And she was the one that kind of said, look, you've got two very good options. You either stay at Reading where you are, or you try something new in Liverpool where you've heard very good things. And I ended up making the decision really late on. I think it was about maybe May. Dale rang and says, look, Lawsy, like, because we hadn't told Reading about Liverpool, and Dale said, look, Lawsy, I probably need to tell them. Because I'd made a decision to go to Liverpool, and I says, all right, okay, look, I knew Kelly would ring us once she found out the news. What am I going to say to her? And I thought, right, you've just got to be honest. You've got a really good relationship with her. She's been open and honest with you. You've just got to tell her how you feel. And I remember she rang, and I said to my mum, oh, look, Kelly's ringing us. And I'd virtually signed on the dotted line for Liverpool. And she says, look, Lawsy, Dale's just rang and told us about Liverpool. Kind of, is there anything else I can offer you within this contract to make you stay, basically? And I says, Kelly, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I says, no. I says, I've had a great 2 years. I've learned a lot about myself as a player and a person. I says, she was like, more money, like, and I just said, it's not about money, Kelly. It's about me going somewhere and enjoying myself and really immersing myself into like the full experience. And I don't know. I said to her, I don't know why I feel like I need to move on. There wasn't something specifically saying you need to go because of this. It was almost like I knew I had to go. And I remember putting the phone down. I said to my mum, I was like, she was great, and I knew she never wouldn't be, but I think I was more worried about me and what I was going to say to her. Whereas actually I was just really honest, and it was the best way to be. And she ended up texting us and saying, like, I wish you nothing but good luck. And, you know, the staff texted us and they were great. And I couldn't have wished for almost like a better send off. Granted, I wish we had finished the season. But given the circumstances, I couldn't have wished for them. They kind of wished us all the best and thanked us for me 2 years. And I ended up signing for Liverpool. And I think, honestly, looking back, I think it's the best decision I've made.
It's well, I mean, it's Liverpool, isn't it? So, I mean, Joe, you know, usually when we get to that point of, you know, it's almost like the pinnacle of your career, isn't it? You know, and would you say that's the pinnacle, or is there more for Rachael Laws?
I think so. I think I can see myself finishing my career here. I enjoy it and I love it that much. It's, you know, I'm not getting any younger, and they're very, very good, and they've offered me a very good, you know, I've signed a 2-year contract, and for them to give us a 2-year contract at 29, 30-year-old was probably a big thing for the club as well, you know. And I know Vicky knew a little bit about us, and Rachel Furness and Becky Jane, my two friends that are here, spoke quite highly of us to her, which I think helped. So I'll give them a little backhander. But it was, I think, me now and how I'm learning and enjoying it. And, you know, I thought, oh, I'm 29, 30, I'm going to a new club. I didn't know what to think, and I thought, am I going to learn, or am I going to like kind of regress and go backwards? And but I'm doing the opposite, and I feel like my game's got so much better. And like I said, I can honestly see myself finishing my career here, and I hope that, you know, these next few years we get promoted again, and I can look back and think, God, what a decision that was to go to Liverpool, you know, and they had just got relegated. Granted, I didn't know that at the time when I signed, but I remember Dale rang us and he said, oh, look, Rosie, they've got relegated. Are you still interested? And I said, absolutely. I says, that doesn't change anything. I just need to go and be happy and learn and enjoy it. And I'd heard great things about Liverpool as to where it wasn't, he shouldn't even have asked the question really, because it was always going to be yes. And I do think, hopefully, if after 2 years the club still want us, I'll happily stay, because it's a place where I'm thoroughly enjoying my football and I'm learning a lot still.
Did you have was it Kirkland who was there at one point?
Yeah, I think he was there last season, and I think he maybe about halfway through he left.
Right.
And he got a job at a male team, I think. I've never met him actually. But yeah, that was a kind of big move for women's football at the time, to have a male who used to play as a coach. And I've heard actually really good things about him. But yeah, I think he was there about half a season last season, I think.
I actually worked with Chris when he moved to Liverpool as a player. Yeah, so it's an interesting time in his career as well. So Rachael, what do you say to the 17-year-old Rachael?
Football and non-football.
Football, I'd say just go and take the jump, take the leap into the unknown, a bit like what I did when I went to Reading. Obviously, first and foremost, you've got to enjoy what you do, but looking back, if I had never took that leap, I wouldn't be where I am. And it's so easy to stay in your comfort zone, but if you don't take that little risk that might be worth the reward, then you just, I don't know, you just won't get anywhere. And I've learned so much, not just as a player, but as a person, by taking that little risk. And it's a risk that has rewarded me time and time again. And as a person, I'd say, a bit like you, Joe, don't be, I mean, it's hard, don't be so home orientated, and you can rely on them no matter where you are in the world, and they're always your constant and you go to with anything, whether it's football chat or whether you need advice on life. They're your constant, and not to rely on people too much. It's like you said, it's a dog-eat-dog world, football, and your family's there no matter what, whether you win 5-0, you lose 5-0, whether you don't get a job, whether you do get a job. And me looking back, I'd still rely on my family, but I wish I didn't do it for as long as I did.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and it's obviously a difficult message to say, because, you know, misinterpreted, that's like saying just be selfish and go and do what you're going to do. But I hear what you're saying, and it takes time. It takes time to learn. It takes time to really, you know, you need to go through ups and downs and then still see the same faces to really know who your people are. But I think it's a really special feeling. And like you just said there, it doesn't matter where you are. It's 5-0 win, 5-0 loss, job, no job, mistake on the field, mistake off the field. You know, they're going to be there for you. And also, obviously, I think the most rewarding thing, Jay, you can obviously agree with this, whatever we're doing, it's nice having people there for you, but it's really nice being there for people as well. I think that's a really important thing to have. And, you know, you're taking that side of it into the young goalkeeper now that you're talking to at Liverpool. It's a nice skill, and it's a nice thing to be around. So yeah, I totally agree with those messages.
I think, you know, like all the times when we do this, there's a lot of learnings and reminders for, my leaving home was from the Northwest Manchester to San Francisco, and it was just interesting. You reminded me, and I think that's what this is about. Sometimes it's a reminder for the young player. It's a reminder for the player who's experienced that different part of their journey, that it's just like, oh yeah, I do have to make those decisions. I do have to take some risks. It is going to be uncertain, whether it's 2021 or 2020. Doesn't matter what the year is. Sometimes it's just going to be uncertain. You're not going to know what's going to be next. And that message is, that you said to your younger self is, go after it, make the decision. You can always go back home. They'll always be there for you. I often say, it's not going to be here forever, so make the most of it. And you're not going to be here forever, so make the most of it. So it's, Rachael, I think for me, it's been, it's been great listening to that journey, going from, I love it, Northeast London way back up to the Northwest. So, it's just, it's great. We need more of that. We need more telling this story like you've done.
I know even if one person can relate to kind of anything I've said, then if I help one person, if I help 100, it doesn't matter. That one alone is enough. And watching the podcast back and hearing people's stories, I thought, oh, I can relate to that, and it just makes you think that I'm not alone, and other people go through this as well. But we've all done something that's been a bit risky, but we've all seemed to reap the rewards. So it's nice, just if you can relate to one person, it's great.
I'm giving some for that. That's and you're not, and certainly not now, because you're part of our gloved community, and we have no idea who's listening to this, and we had no idea you were listening to this. And the next Lawsy is going to be listening to this in her own right, and she might be 14 herself, and thinking, that's the path that she wants to go down, and the next youngster who's watched Joe. But as we said, there's, I'll tell you now, Rachael, there'll be a college student somewhere who's thinking, should I go and go to university away from home, or should I go and get a job away from home? And they'll be thinking the same thought process, and that will help. So I appreciate you sharing that, because we don't know who's watching and listening. Yeah, exactly. That's why we do it.
Yeah, no, that's literally that's what I'm going to say when we wrap it. Like, this is a real nice reminder of why we do it. And it's a real nice, real nice reminder of big decisions, and how they're different in everyone's life, but they're almost the same at the same time. They're the fly in the nest. They're the comforts. They're if I go there, is it going to work? Like, you just don't know until you try. You don't, and your path is your path, and you say that those decisions were the ones that you needed to make, but you made them. Simple. And look at you now, like happier than ever at Liverpool, learning more, getting better, behind the docks, windswept, winning at the biggest, arguably, the biggest club in the world right now. No getting away from that fact. Wow. What a great episode. I really, really, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed talking to Rachael about her experiences on the field. I think her experiences off the field are going to strike a chord with so many people involved in football and not involved in football. those big decisions, those home comforts. Do I take the plunge? Don't I? What if I do? What if I don't? I think the clear message that we've got from this is about believing in yourself, backing yourself, and just going for it, taking it with both hands and just giving it your best. And if you really do that and do believe in what you're doing, then great things can happen. And Rachael's a huge example of that. So, Rachael, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your honesty. Best of luck in what you're doing. You sound like you're right in the middle of your career right now, and you're ready to kick on and go to that next level that you've been striving for. Sounds like you've got a great relationship with your goalkeeper coach. I love the fact that you're helping the young goalkeepers that are around you. Thank you for being a part of the show, and look forward to keeping an eye on your career as it progresses.
Rachael, I've got to say thank you also. Some of the insights, love the family aspect. I think that's very important. But the honesty to, at that point where you did make those decisions, I think will be very, very useful. So I'm interested in, I often say this to a lot of the people that we have on, one day in the not too distant future, we're going to get everybody together. And, I think for people listening to this, it is about access, and you've talked about the access to the people who've influenced your life and the goalkeeping coaches. But I think also, what a big thing for Joe and I is also is extending the goalkeepers union as well. And it's great that, through whatever means that, you're now part of the gloved community. So next time I want to see you wearing a t-shirt as well, by the way. Yeah. So thank you. Please, keep being and doing, and I'm sure there'll be a future goalkeeper who one day will say they've listened to this the Rachael Laws episode and really helped her or him. So I'm looking forward to an invitation to Liverpool when we can start watching games again. Yeah.
No, thank you for having me on, both of you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, from being someone who watches the podcast to now being on it. I just hope that my story reaches, whether it reaches 100 people or whether it reaches 1 or 2, I just hope that someone can relate to it and hopefully take what they need from it. And that's what this podcast is all about.
It's great.
100%.